Good evening. I'd like to call the Foxborough School Committee meeting to order tonight, 7:05 p.m. This is our regular meeting, April 28th. The agenda is as follows for this evening. 7 o'clock visitors, 7:10 approval of minutes, 7:15 teaching and highlights. Mr. Pete Regan, Ms. Mello, and Ms. Kelly Arkasha. Thank you. Sorry. 7:30 p.m. Athletic Field Enhancement Project, Mr. James DeBellis. Declan Maloney, Troop 7 Eagle Scout candidate. 7:40 approval of Foxborough High School overnight travel, Ms. Myers-Pakla. 7:50 bullying survey data, Dr. Ray Knight and Dr. Judith Sims Knight. 8:20 school committee vote on school choice participation, Ms. Spinelli. 8:30 acceptance of donation, Ms. Spinelli. 8:35 other matters. We will be going into executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiating strategies with non-union personnel, superintendent's contract. The committee will not return to open session. So I've just been told we have some sad news, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Spinelli.
Sure. I actually want to appreciate the Foxborough reporter. Both Frank Mortimer and Bill Stedman called me today to let me know about this, which was helpful since we didn't have internet access in the office today. The sad news is that Tony Williams, who was a Foxborough High School graduate, passed away today at age 49 due to complications of pneumonia. Tony's known to many in our community for his inspiration, perseverance, and his commitment to helping others following a tragic accident on the football field in 1982, which left him paralyzed. Our condolences go to Tony's wife, Jacinta Carrion Williams, who resides in Foxborough, as well as his extended family and many, many friends. Tony was a definite presence here in Foxborough afterwards, speaking to student groups, motivating others, and always with a positive attitude. And while I didn't know him personally, I just moved to Foxborough with my husband that 30-something years ago and was a young mother at home. I know that at the time I was particularly impressed, not just with how he came back to live a full life after that, but how much he gave back. So that was sad news, and I really appreciate that the reporter let us know that today, because it wouldn't have come my way so timely otherwise.
I remember him very well. He was one of my former students. He was one of the Metco students when Metco was very strong in Foxborough.
Could we have a moment of silence?
I was just going to say I'd like to take a moment of silence in remembrance of Tony. Thank you. We extend our deepest sympathies to him and his family. All right, we're going to move on to visitors. Let's see if we have any visitors. Seeing none, we will move on to approval of minutes. So we are looking at the regular meeting minutes of April 7th. There's a motion to accept the minutes.
Yes, motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
Any revisions or changes? Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Okay, we're going to move on to teaching and learning highlights.
Yes, while I'm prepping up, I would love to have we have some Foxborough High School very talented art students here. If they'd like to come up and just drag a chair from the front row, and also Mr. Pete Regan, principal of the Taylor School, Kelly Arkasha is our art department head, and Allison Mello, who's our K-8 math science director. This teaching and learning highlight is such a great example of our, I was going to say multi-generational, but I really mean multi-school level projects. And I remember a few months ago walking into this class with Ms. Myers-Pakla, I believe, and seeing what the kids were doing, and I just thought it was like this wonderful graphic design project, and I had no idea that they were, until they told me, that they were doing this actually to help younger students, and then discovered that it was actually a collaboration between one of our elementary principals and our other administrators here. So I think this is a great example of exciting things that kids do that has real meaning for other people. So if you could just introduce yourselves, I'll start my left to right and tell us your name and what grade you're in, and then anyone can start about what is this terrific project.
My name is Rachel McLaughlin, and I'm a junior.
I'm Lindsay Cuniff, and I'm a junior.
I'm Molly Slyman. I'm also a junior.
I'm Christina Palatano, and I'm a senior.
I'm Matt Mello, and I'm a senior.
Just to introduce this project, this project originated with Allison Mello and I were looking at how do we start adding some vocabulary cards that would have a visual for our students in the classroom. And someone in our professional lives had shared these cards with us. And Allison and I were very impressed with the cards, but the cost to buy all the sets of them was approximately $120, and they were a larger size than this that we could post in classrooms for students to have a visual, recognize key terminology and vocabulary from mathematics. What we realized after we bought a set is how expensive it would be to outfit all of our elementary classrooms with these, and then the next part was we really didn't like all of the designs from this company. So as the more we thought about it, we said, is it really worth the cost that we're looking at? We love the idea, but we don't think all the designs are going to really mesh with our students and where they're coming from. So we continued to talk about, so what do we do next? We had a great conversation with Kelly during one of our administrative retreats where we shared this idea, and that's when Kelly immediately brought it to her students. So at this point, I'm not sure who'd like to start talking about how you received the project.
And I see you have a presentation, so are we gonna be moving
Yeah.
like that, or just, what are we gonna show? And did you have to bring a handout, Mr.
I did. I didn't want to take away from this piece. So here you
Oh,
can
I'm
actually
sorry.
see. Here you can actually see 20 of the designs that these students have designed for us to use at the elementary level in our classrooms.
So
Bless you.
before we could begin on the cards, we've been in CBAD for the past 3 years, most of us, and that's graphic design where you learn different things about typography and using pictures and different things like that. And this was what, freshman year that we learned it?
Yeah.
And it was about learning the spacing between the letters and how it really makes a difference on how people can receive the text, and whether it's clearer for people to understand, and how people can understand it.
This is like some of our projects that we've done last year.
The one on top is actually my project, and the point of the project is to have this one side be clean text, and then the other is kind of like expressive text. And you take that with the song, and to balance it out, you do the two.
So when we first got this project, we hadn't seen the cards that the school already had, and we thought it would be more including like icons and like using pictures for students to understand them. So once we got them and we saw what they were already using, we realized that their examples were using more text-based and like using the words to express the meaning behind the vocabulary word. So at first we were going in one direction, but then once we saw how they were using them before, we changed it up a little bit, and now that's how we got to ours.
This is like, for one of our projects, we had like an icon where we did like what we do every day, and this is like our sketchbook where we have to do a couple designs, and we peer edit each other and decide like what is like works best. And that's like the final project of that one.
So these were the 23 vocabulary words that we got. For some of them, we had to look up the definition because we didn't know all of them. And with the cards that they already had, there were some that weren't really expressed very well, and you could tell that any elementary school student probably wouldn't understand it as well.
Yeah. Because we couldn't understand half of them. Like
This is an
one,
example of isosceles.
which we have no idea what
Yeah.
they were going for. So
And this
Along with
one's
this one.
quadrilateral.
which also we have no
Yeah.
idea what
To
they
show
were
the
going
head four
for.
sides, so we knew that we had to change both of those to make it so that the students could receive it better. This was a app that we used that showed what students were learning in each grade, because for some things we would look at it and we would say, we understand this, but would a first grader understand if they can, what's the difference between perpendicular and intersecting lines, you know.
And we
and
didn't know if the angle marks,
if they had learned those yet and like
you
what
put
the
a
curriculum
slash
was.
if
Yeah.
it's equal to each other. We didn't know if they would know that.
If they haven't learned that or not yet.
This is an example out of my sketchbook, and you can see the different, like, we try a lot of different options to, like, get the best result, and you can just see, like, even the decimal, like, there's a lot of variation in those, and some are more focused on the type, and others are less and focus more on, like, the concept and the numbers of it.
So that was their example on the left.
And then that's what we came up with on the right.
Much better.
Yeah. Yours are much better. You're gonna publish.
This is us critiquing each other. That's Mr. DeBona and Miss Macy. They came in and showed us, Miss Macy told us that we were actually defining some of the words incorrectly, so we had to change those up a little bit. And they also showed us which didn't relate to each other as much. We would have to fix them if they weren't, they all had to be similar and within like the same spacing and everything. So we had to switch them around and they gave us some good tips on those.
So you had to make teachers from 2 departments now.
Yeah. And those are the final products.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I just want to say, I remember these students when they came to the middle school as 5th graders, and it was surreal to walk into their class and see them as not only high school age, but so talented and able to take this project beyond the expectations that I think that we had with your leadership. So I just thank you so much for the amount of thought and effort and iterations that it went through to get to where it is. And we look forward to getting this out to our teachers. They're going to be very excited to have this in addition to their classrooms. So.
And as well, the
Thank you.
difference that you're making for all of the elementary schools, not just at the Taylor School, but all 3 elementary schools. So every elementary student will be looking at your work there.
And they're going to know the difference between perimeter and area.
Yeah.
They're so good.
They are.
They really should be marketed. I mean, you saw some of these triangles, you showed us the old one, I have no idea what they are. But the way you did it, making the L and marking the 2 sides of the
Yes.
angle with bold and other, knowing which one you're not talking about.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
The cone isn't here. I like the cone.
Maybe they can draw it on there for you.
I think it's so exciting for the elementary school students to know that this came from all of you, and it's something that they're going to be able to aspire to. You know, you're inspiring them to learn, you know, about these concepts in such a great way. But then it's going to also, I think, inspire them to think, wow, I can do something when I go to high school. You know, I can really set my mind on something and accomplish it. And I think that's amazing. So.
And I have to, one more thing that I just wanted to point out was this, we've had these cards floating around the district for a few years now, and it really was Mr. Regan's idea to say, let's utilize the talent we have at the high school, and great idea.
Idea only of actually putting this in motion. It was great idea.
Makes me wonder what other in-house talents we have that we could capitalize on. This is fabulous. And I think I remember Lindsay, the day in the life of Lindsay, that was one of the one of the key awards. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. We saw that before.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was fabulous. But what a great job, guys. Just fabulous.
Thank you.
She's dashing in from sports, and as I remember correctly, you didn't have any, you told us when you got up, but you never told us when you went to bed in that.
Oh.
So this is proof positive, you don't have time to sleep.
Well, I just can't say enough. I think not only are they so talented in their area in graphic design, but some of these are just genius. All of them. I mean, they really should market it. Perimeter. I mean, everyone I look at it's just
The parallel line.
I love parallel lines.
That's our favorite.
Yeah.
That's the
That
best
was my
one.
favorite.
Yeah.
You know what's cool is they actually like helped us with something real, using their studio time to make a real product that we can actually use. How many people get the opportunity to do that? So
And
again,
we love that in the art department, that they get to take real world projects, you know, take their design, take their art, and
Right.
see where they can help the community, how, you know, the artist, what the artist's role is in the community, so that's awesome.
I'm just curious, if, out of the group here, do you have ideas about going in this direction post-high school, or have you, I know there's a couple of juniors, so you're probably still.
I think a lot of us are undecided.
Yeah.
What we
We're
plan
still
to do.
thinking, yeah.
I'm going into like advertising, so I won't be like in graphic design, but I'm definitely going to use these skills later.
And what about you?
I'm going undecided, but I'm leaning towards like a marketing, advertising type thing. So I feel like this will definitely like play an influence in what I'm doing.
No doubt. Because this is so important to realizing how information is presented totally affects the communication about the product, really. And we've all seen like ads that are poor, but it doesn't make you interested in the product. So if you're doing design, or if you're doing marketing, or
And also the
advertising.
business perspective of it too, like working and seeing like what they're looking for and like how we had to see what the students had already learned and how we had to use that. That's also not just in the art aspect of it, but in the real life examples.
You had a customer.
Yeah.
That's a good point, yes.
next up, they're creating the flyers for our STEM Expo. Yes, they are.
They're working on a couple of town logos too, so,
On a couple what?
town logo projects.
That's great.
Cool.
So your role in this is just passing the buck.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Finding
She
the
did
jobs
nothing.
and passing
She
them.
got
us
That is one,
That's great.
congratulations, this is awesome.
Really great. Great.
They should be really proud of
What our
yourself.
kids can accomplish.
Okay, so you want to jump to approval of high school overnight travel? Ms. Myers?
Ms. Myers from Papua. Mrs. Diana. Diana, our next presenter is in here. Would you mind if we skip to overnight travel? Actually, going to run it. Sure. Or AJ.
So always exciting. Not the first time that something like this has come forward, but Caitlin, I'll let you take it from there.
I apologize first for the late notice in this trip because it is coming up rather quickly. Our track coach had the opportunity to take, it says 15, but it's scaled down to 9 students, 9 female athletes, to a track meet in New York State. His thought and feeling behind taking them to this track meet will prepare them for the state meets, expose some of the younger athletes to a high-level competition, and so I supported him in this endeavor, and he's taking all the responsibility, but I just wanted to please ask you if that is something that is okay with the school committee and answer any questions that you may have.
When is this?
It is May 8th to the 10th, so they'll be leaving Thursday. A few of the students, why it's gone down is because, next Thursday, a few of the students have AP exams, so they're staying behind with their AP exams and not traveling, which is the most important thing. Decision that was, I think, they sometimes have a hard time with, but to focus on their AP exams is the most important thing.
Is this the first time something like this has been?
They went last year, a smaller group. It was on the agenda last year when there was the big list of athletic events. We didn't have it on because it was such a small group last year that went. He wasn't sure if he wanted to do it again, but he had more interest from the individual athletes. And then I believe, and I can't speak because I was an athletic director at the time, 2 years ago, he also went with a larger group. They didn't do the Dartmouth relays, which they've done in the past. They didn't do it this year, so this was an opportunity to travel. And we are fortunate enough to have a few female athletes who are really top performers in the state at a variety of different levels. So this really exposes them to different competition outside the state of Massachusetts.
So what's the ratio of students to?
Who are going to, who are participating in track right now for?
No, I'm sorry, on this trip, the 9 students and how many chaperones will there be?
There will be 3 chaperones. So there'll be the two track coaches and then a parent chaperone as well.
And that's the usual number that we have, the ratio.
I think
No, it's usually
It's usually less.
It's usually more students and less
Yeah.
chaperones with
Okay.
that number. I mean, that's a large number of chaperones, but certainly when it's track and in a variety of places, it makes sense.
And there may be more parents who go with their children that I'm just not aware of right now, but
We'll go to the meeting.
will go to the meet and travel.
Oh, separate from this 9?
Separate from the
Oh,
parents who may want to watch their
Okay.
children participate in the meet and that I'm not aware of right now, and I didn't ask specifically which parents are going. But the track coach will take on the responsibility of monitoring the team.
Mr.
Yes.
Will you need anything else, like liability insurance or food, in addition to what you need,
No, I mean,
human comforts and
he'll take the
safety?
responsibility of, using the school district form of taking responsibility of transporting the athletes, taking on that responsibility himself, and the parents will sign off with permission slips
Mhm.
as well, so there, but no added.
They'll be using our buses?
No, they won't be, they'll drive down
Oh.
separately. So
Oh.
there is a form that is in the district-wide handout that they fill out, they take the responsibility of transporting, and I believe, transporting the students there,
Right,
so.
it's not really
With
different
parent
from the
permission.
other overnight travels.
Yes, exactly, with permission, with parent permission, of
Mhm.
course.
Sounds good to me, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so you need a motion to accept the overnight travel trip for the Foxborough High School girls track team for May 8th through May 10th to White Plains High School in White Plains, New York, correct? Is there a motion for?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? All right, 5-0. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Great trip and great experience.
Oh, I know, it will be.
And good luck.
No, right.
Take
They'll
pictures.
do well, I know. I won't be there, I'll tweet out some pictures.
Caitlin,
Yeah.
just before you leave, I want to thank you for all your work on scheduling the turf field.
Oh, thank you very much.
Because I've seen, I'm sure, a very small percentage of the email traffic that goes on. And a couple of weeks ago, we asked Mr. Yukna how the spring sports usage was coming and the scheduling, and he confirmed that there are a lot of kids on that turf field from sunrise to sunset. So I know you play a very key role in that, so I just wanted to thank you publicly.
Thank you. I mean, the community has been great to work with, and everyone's been so understanding and patient with me as we figure it out together. But we've had baseball, softball, track, soccer, little girls lacrosse out there right now, which is, the goal is to have it used as much as there's daylight. So we will continue to do that. So, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. And I will continue to work with everyone.
Right.
Try not to mess up too much. So
Thank you.
I see a young man in the audience, must be, are you Declan?
That's
Yeah.
Declan.
I am Mrs. Finelli. Well, we're waiting for Mr. DeBellis.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe we should move on then.
I think, we don't want
Yeah,
to put you on the
no.
spot by
Yeah.
yourself, but
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to hearing about your project.
Can you hang out a little longer, Declan? Yeah, okay.
Should we jump to,
Yeah,
just in
it's
case
quicker.
he walks through the door, and I don't want to take away from the time from the nights. Should we maybe do school committee vote on school choice?
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
let's do that. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me time to read up on that, I appreciate it. The whole group, thank you.
So we have to vote on.
So the school committee, not in the packet, but through Ms. Gracia sent you right after the last meeting.
Yes, that's right.
The information.
That's right,
on
I'm
school
sorry,
choice
yeah.
participation, which
That's
is right here.
Yes. So a vote of, just to remind us.
Yes, so
vote.
the information was sent to you in the last meeting, we discussed it and wanted the background information, which we typically haven't had in the packet each year, but good note that, especially if it's new to any of the members, that we should put it in the packet each year as the background information. And I'll be sure to ask next year. So this is the whole Mass General Law about school choice. And as you can see, it's pretty heavy reading, but it basically says that, if you do not want to participate, just vote by a certain date. Then that's up for discussion as well.
So could I motion that we accept the motion as written for the last meeting unless it's changed?
Okay.
Or did we want to discuss it any further?
I don't have a motion on the table at all.
Oh, there's none? Okay,
No.
well, thank you for the information.
Oh,
It was
last,
very
no.
helpful.
I am going to go to the minutes just for a minute.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And I'll just read it, because it was a while ago, that we reviewed the need for school committee vote each year on whether or not to participate in school choice. We noted that we have not participated. Mr. Uden requested time to review the school choice law and the policy and asked that the vote be taken at the next school meeting. The consensus, school committee meeting, the consensus of the committee was that the vote would be delayed until the next meeting scheduled for April 28th. So that's pretty much where we are.
Okay. So, we need a motion to.
Unless you, yes, a motion to participate or not participate, or discussion, or
Right.
whatever the will.
So I'll make a motion that we not participate
Thank
in
you.
school choice
Second.
for the coming school year.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I actually have a question,
Yeah.
and I'll apologize, but
No,
I am
don't
just curious.
apologize.
I read the law, and it does say that after this vote is taken to opt out, that such resolution by the school committee is filed with the Board of
Yes,
Education. I
that's
just
right.
wanted to make sure we do that
Yes,
as a matter of
annually,
course.
we have to let them know by a certain date whether we will or won't participate. Because then if any committee across the Commonwealth decides to participate,
Right.
then that puts in motion all of the regulations
Right.
you just read the 4 or 5 pages about,
Yeah.
and then we would comply with that. If we say that we haven't, and we have a recorded
You
note
file
of the
that.
vote, then they so note the communities that are not.
Okay, that was my question.
Good question.
Yeah.
Okay, so any further discussion? Okay, so all those in favor of not participating in
Good
school
girl.
choice, don't laugh at me, Bruce. Please,
Well, it's a double negative, it's hard.
well, I know, that's the thing that's throwing me. All those in favor of that?
Aye.
And you have, did you get that?
Well, we're gonna use the language we've used previously because that's.
We did not have language. I read just the minutes. There's no
Yeah.
language.
So,
The last year's vote. though,
Oh, yes.
I think.
Yep.
It's in the front.
So
One is the same
last
language
year's
as last year.
vote. Oh, here we go. Right here.
okay, so the motion is that the Foxborough Public Schools will not participate in school choice for the 2014-2015 school year. All those in favor?
Aye. Do we have to recall, Bruce, do we have a procedure where we have to recall your,
That's kind of
I don't
how,
know.
I think it's
That's
pretty
what
darn
it-
close to how I worded it, so I think.
fair enough.
I think we're,
Fair enough,
That's
yep.
exactly what
Just
it
plow
said.
through it.
thank you.
Did we-
Thank you.
Did we do that correctly? With, okay. Okay.
And then you
Boy,
voted
double
in-
negatives.
And you voted
Throwing
in
us-
favor of that motion.
Yes.
Five
Yes,
to
and not
to
participating.
not
yes.
participate.
Yep.
Jeez. Okay, thank you. All right, now we're gonna, Mr. DeVellis is here, so we're gonna ask Mr. DeVellis and
It's 3 minutes
Declan?
late.
Declan,
to
yes.
Declan to come forward.
3 minutes
We
late.
did some other business while we were waiting for you, so no worries.
Thank you.
While they're
Thank you
getting
for
set up,
joining us.
Declan, welcome. to the Budget
Yes, thank you,
Committee.
Declan.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I just, while they're getting prepped up, I always like to fill the space, but I think, you know, the support of this committee in establishing a new turf field and then the new ball fields in the back, I think is gonna be one of the best things, when this is all finished, that ever happened to this high school campus. And when you drive back there, and I hope you have, you can see not only the progress that's made, but the potential for what it's going to become. And I think when you start a project like that, and I mean you, it's a committee, it does invite everyone to become involved. And when Jim called me about this proposal and mentioned the very talented Eagle Scout before us, I think this is just exactly what happens when somebody starts the ball rolling. So really, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Nice introduction. And thanks for waiting. I was a couple minutes late. If it's okay, let me just give you a little bit of a background to see how we got here with this project and Declan Maloney, our future Eagle Scout, and then I'll give it over to him and he can speak on it. As you recall, we started the construction back for the turf field in the late summer, early fall. But to get to that point, we had to bring it through the Conservation Commission because part of the turf project is baseball, softball, field hockey. There's an all-purpose field, a parking lot that's going to go behind the high school, kind of parallel with the Hersey Field. So every time we say, you know, the turf field, everyone's using it and it's great, but we're very quick to say in the baseball field's not far behind because we don't, it hasn't been forgotten. So quick shout out to Bill Yukner, if you want to call it the OPM or the clerk of the works. It's been going on very, very, very well, and a great contractor, and I think for the most part it's right on schedule and on budget and all that good stuff. So during the design process, on the back and behind the high school, there used to be the old septic treatment plant, and there's buildings and kind of junk that was all associated with that. That's all cleaned up now, and we leveled it all out. But it's within 100 feet of the conservation resources, the wetlands, so we had to file a notice of intent. And during that process, and Deb was at the meetings with us, it's another appointed board, and there was kind of some discussion, how could we make it a little bit better? Because we are, even though we're cleaning that area up, we're losing about 4 or 5 acres of kind of wooded area that buffers the backside. So there was a couple things that we noticed when we were out there, and I'll just show this board quickly, just so you know what we're talking about. As you come in, can you all see this?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
As you come in, this is South Street, so you come in the entrance, this is the turf field. Existing parking lots throughout here, the high school, and as you come back here, what we're going to end up with, this is the Hersey Field, so we have a gravel parking lot for 50 cars, a practice field, the baseball field, the field hockey field, and a softball field. Now what happens when we cleared this all out, we noticed there's a large drainage ditch that comes all along here, and if you've driven out there, it's kind of steep slope. We mentioned to the conservation it would be a good opportunity to kind of clean up the water as it comes, because all this water comes down when it rains from all these parking lots, and it carries the hydrocarbons from the tires and the oils and things like that. So we had committed to them that we would come back, and we could have given this to a contractor, but it was going to be more of a community effort, and the feeling is if the community is involved, it stays a lot longer and people take pride. So we came up with a concept that we would slow the water down as it goes along the swale with check dams and plantings, and Declan can talk about that. And by the time the water gets down to here and eventually ends up down towards where the 140 community gardens are, so it'll be a nicer traveling for the water and quality. And then the other thing is when we're clearing these trees on the wildlife, the birds and the bats and things like that, so we said, well, we'll see if we can kind of replicate their homes someplace in that area. So that's as far as we got it, and you remember at the meeting they liked it, and we said we would be back, and so we're back now. Following this meeting, we're going to be in front of the Conservation Commission at 8 and kind of introduce Declan and what he's doing. So that's all I'll say in that, and I'll pass it over to Declan. And when we got to that point, we reached out to anyone that would consider it, and Declan was the first one that came to us.
So I just have a couple quick things to pass out here for you guys to take a look at. We have a little packet with a couple points we have to make. Some of the schematics for the birdhouses we're putting up, and little idea of some of the requirements for the Eagle project here in these workbooks. I already filled out the workbooks, and so the approach I've been taking to this is like I was approached with the idea of putting up some birdhouses around the field to kind of give a home back to some of the birds that their homes got destroyed when putting up the field. So I've decided that we can build 140 birdhouses and 20 bat houses surrounding not only the backfields but also going all the way up to the Sam Burns field and surrounding the Sam Burns field with these birdhouses and bat houses. And along with that, we're also planning on, like Mr. DeVella said, building check dams along the drainage swale, and those are there to regulate the water flow so the water doesn't rip through there and destroy the swale. And those kind of consist of piling up little like rock dams and things like that, and along with that they'll be planting some grass in the swale, and I will be planting some bushes and like berry bushes and things like that along with the check dams to help regulate the water flow and become almost a natural filter for some of the hydrocarbons and the runoff from the parking lot. And not only will they be doing that, we'll also be planting some berry bushes along with them to kind of bring some food to the birds that'll hopefully be inhabiting the birdhouses.
160.
Yes.
That seems like an enormous number and just a large project. So, I mean, very impressive. And you've provided us with a schematics here of the birdhouses and what they'll actually, the size of them.
Mhm.
And will you be how will these be, will you be constructing these? Or what?
I will be constructing some of them with volunteers and.
You're not doing all 160?
No, not all by myself, no.
Good. I
Schneider
feel better.
Electric and Ventus have volunteered to help build a portion of them as well, and also help with putting them up in the trees.
Oh, how great.
Oh, right. So you won't be climbing up there, right, Dave? Okay, good.
Not allowed to.
Okay.
Could Madam
Yeah,
Chair,
sure, Steve. go
Could I add to the very high credibility of Declan? I know Declan a little bit from another volunteer role I have over at Southeastern Regional Voc Tech. And this fine young man was just inducted into the Honor Society, making Foxborough proud. And it's really great to see you here. I know you're functioning as a Boy Scout, but he's one of our town sons, and he's over doing excellent work, making Foxborough proud. Bringing the town to Southeastern Voc Tech, and it's darn good to see you here, and this is a really cool, interesting project. And I will not go up any trees for you at all. But I'll help you somewhere if I can.
It's a really impressive proposal, too,
Yeah.
the way you put it together.
Along with inventors at Schneider Electric, also Buddy Brackett will be helping out with the plantings and helping purchase them, and also helping to give guidance to the volunteers that come to help how to plant them correctly so the plants don't get all messed up.
A real community effort.
You've really got a lot of people
Yes.
involved.
I actually spoke with 2 Boy Scouts at dinner tonight. My 2 sons are in Scouts with Declan, who incidentally is the senior patrol leader of Troop 7 right now. And both Jack and Sam said they'd be very happy to help with this project. So my question is, what's your timetable for this?
June, early June, hopefully, because I can't get any of the, I can't start on the project until I have it signed off by the Boy Scout Council, and unfortunately I can't get to council till close to the end of May, so pretty much as soon as I'm okayed by council, I'm going to be going at this in early to mid-June.
Okay, great.
Which will actually work well, because the contractor will be off the site probably mid to late May. They'll be completed. So as far as having heavy construction, equipment and stuff off the site, that would be good. The second thing that Declan's doing here, which you probably haven't gotten a chance to see it the way Jim and I have seen it, but when we have heavy rains, you literally could canoe down that side. It goes so fast. So having something that really does slow that down will also slow down the erosion that typically would happen on those banks, which I think is going to be a very positive thing for this project.
So you're looking to start this mid-June? Is that what you're
Yes.
Okay, and then what's the time frame for
Well,
the actual project?
hopefully, once all the construction is done of the birdhouses, we can be in here around June 17th and June 22nd to actually start putting up birdhouses and putting in the plants.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to mention then your idea of the
Yes,
fundraising.
go ahead, Steve.
That concept.
Yeah.
Declan, for financing, since this is a broadcast to the town, so there might be people interested in this project, how are you financing it, and what about the facility for where you're going to be constructing and storing these? Might you need space that one organization or another can help you with, either construction or storage of completed, the habitats that you're making? Do you need any help with that, or
Well,
what would be of help to you?
Well, for the fundraising, we plan on setting up booths on Armed Forces Day and Founders Day as well. And our plan is to have people come up and have a chance to sponsor a birdhouse. So what they would do is they'd come up and give us $25 for the birdhouse, and we'll take their email address and give them a number for their birdhouses. And as we put up the birdhouses, we'll number each one, and when we're done, we'll put up a little map together of where each numbered birdhouse is, and email that map to all the people that sponsored so they can see which birdhouse they sponsored and go and see it.
That's
That's very
Do
clever.
you have any
Great.
sponsors on your list yet?
Not yet.
May I be the first?
Yes,
There you go.
Sold.
Just got 10 of them, write that one down.
I think the Ballingers will be the second. Now, Armed Forces Day is May 17th, which is
Yes.
the same as Clean Up Foxborough Day. So you should
Yes.
get a good amount of people out and about that day who are
That's the plan.
interested in beautifying our community. So I think that's a great idea. Absolutely.
There's the proud father right there.
Joe,
When do you think the whole base, the construction that they're doing in the back of the high school, when do you think that will be done by?
Yeah.
I think that's a question.
Should
Yeah,
be mid to late May. They should be actually seeding it
This year or next year?
this year.
Will
It
they
won't
have-
be usable for a year though, Joe. We have to stay
Okay.
off it, because you have to let the grass grow, so we need to give it a full growing season.
Okay. But it will be available next April, right?
Yes.
That's the plan.
Wow,
Um,
this is so impressive. Yes,
Yeah, it's great.
Declan, was there anything else you needed from us besides our approval at this point?
Yeah, I need you to sign the actual workbook, so I can bring that back to council and prove that.
You were
they
here?
signed it. You don't have to sign each individual one. I have one main one here that, this is the only one that needs to be
So
signed.
the chair,
I should give it to the boss in the middle.
the
of
chair.
That's it right up.
Do we need a motion to approve? Yeah.
And as well as the plantings and the birdhouses, we'll also be building some signs to put near the entrance of the field. So that just explaining what the project is and the purpose of the check dams. So and like all the community effort that went into the project, hopefully to deter people from just throwing their trash into the swale.
Is there, Jim and Bill, is there any reason to think about getting rid of, or not getting rid of, but lessening the steepness of that grade back there?
We actually, we did quite a bit on that in the back section. There's a problem because obviously the closeness to the baseball field itself. So what we did in one area where it is particularly steep, we actually added 40 feet of fence that's going in, so that kids, won't be able to just fall over it. They'd have to actually walk around the fence and then go. But other than that, the pitch is actually, pretty comparable to what we have in other areas. That one particular area was much steeper, so
I know-
originally the whole thing was that way, and we
Oh,
broke
my.
that down. So.
I know that when we've had a lot of traffic back there in past years, like the Foxborough Cup, for an example, we've had cars overturned. I think before the wooden
You're talking
guardrail.
about the Aroa, yeah. What we actually are trying to do is DPW, we've asked them if they can extend that pipe one more length in so that we could actually fill in a little further, and then we would put some kind of a barrier, whether it's the rocks or even maybe continue that fence that goes along the roadway there.
Just, anticipating a lot more traffic back there now, if we've had that problem in the past.
Yeah, no,
If we could do anything to,
That's why we did the original fence, and now that we've cleared the trees, that particular area you're talking about that goes to the Hershey Field is a little bit more prevalent now, so we need to deal with
okay.
that too.
So you guys are on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it was probably about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a student, Andy Fortune wrote a letter to the selectmen, and we just gave it to the school, because I think a car did, and you guys put up that guardrail along the side.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one.
Yeah.
One thing I also wanted to mention, when Declan approached us, it was, who can't make birdhouses? It was a kind of a no-brainer, a small thing. I don't think he imagined it was this much involved, and we kept saying to him, if it's too much, let us know. And he kept saying, no. But he's reached out to businesses, the community, he put together the business plan, and then he emailed me the other night, kind of when it was all set, and there was a line item on it that he was actually, in his budget, there's money that he's raising to give to the school, so it lives on in perpetuity. So, the plants and vegetation needs to be maintained, or the birdhouses, even though they're pretty low maintenance, they've got to be opened up once in a while, they're cleaned out. So you want to talk about?
Yeah, some of the money that we'll be getting from the sponsorships will be going into a fund to give back to Foxborough High School. So once a year, I don't know who, but can come out and open up the birdhouses and clean them out, and just keep it all maintained so it can last for a very long time.
School committee members clean them out, or?
Yeah, you individually.
Oh. You got me. Fair and square.
I'll vote for that.
There goes the
I make a motion that
You see
that be
There's the motion.
carried.
We got selectmen It's gonna be a mess. It's gonna be awful.
That's gonna be a popular subject, I'll tell you that.
Okay, are you guys on a time limit? Because do
Yes,
you
there's
have another
supposed to be.
meeting you have to get to?
Yeah, but I
Okay.
think just the general, before he
Okay.
went too far, we wanted to make sure it was okay since it's on school
Okay.
property. Just kind of a nod so he can finish up his paperwork and then.
All right, so
get it.
can I make a motion
Yes.
to approve this project going forward?
Yes, how about we'll approve, you're making the motion for the Foxborough Troop 7 Eagle Scout candidate, Declan Maloney.
To approve the Foxborough High School Wildlife
Thank
and
you.
Water Quality Enhancement Project.
Yes,
Can I second that?
yes, any further discussion? All
None.
those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, okay, and then I just want to confirm with you where you want me to sign it.
Yeah.
Is it yellowed right here?
It'll say, yeah, beneficiary.
Okay,
Declan, maybe you can help her with that, just while I ask Mr. DeVellis a question, just to make sure she gives it to you the way you need it.
Yeah.
But Jim, I probably my lack of recollection, but the field hockey field, as drawn, goes right through the baseball field, right?
Correct, yeah.
How do we handle fencing around the baseball field?
Yeah, it's gonna be similar to what was there before. It's kind of rectangular around everything, so there's, you get the fields and then.
Just the way it
extra
was
space.
out here?
Exactly, yep.
Okay.
Actually, if you look at the handout that Declan gave you that shows it,
Yep,
that dotted line to the outside is the outside of the fencing itself.
okay. Yeah, I guess we had the same setup out here, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah, it looks like it's overlapping, but I mean, the outside lines are on the plan, but they're not in the field. So it's gonna be all grass, it's not on the skin, it's not on the inside of the pitcher's mound or any of that stuff, it's all grass.
Okay.
Good luck at Conservation Commission.
Yes.
I think they'll like it.
We'll be right over it. You can text us if you have any trouble.
Well, your meetings are a lot nicer than my meetings. We'll leave
Very,
it at that.
very, very impressive, Declan, really.
Thank you,
Yeah,
thank you
very
very much.
impressive.
Appreciate
And
it.
I really
Thank you.
compliment you, and I'm happy to be your first donor.
yeah,
Good luck, Declan.
yes,
you.
good luck.
Well
Thank you
done.
very much.
Thank you so much.
This is great. My.
The talent in our district is, it's just wonderful to see. We're so fortunate. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to the bullying survey data.
While they're getting set up, I'll introduce them in a minute, but this is, I know they've been before you before, the doctor's night, as I call them, Judith Sims night and Rainbow. They are each university professors at different universities. They happen to be married, but the great thing about them is that this is an example of when we have such talent in the community that steps forward, because that's what they did on their own, in an area that they have professional expertise in, to help us collect real data from our own students about what goes on with aggressors and targets. And this is a partnership that's gone on for over 3 years. Actually, it's probably a little more than 4 years, because they signed up to be on the anti-bullying task force that was created several years ago. And what they have brought to us in terms of richness of data collection over the years is beyond what we could ever do ourselves. And the type of analysis that they do is well beyond what any public school district could do. And I'm so grateful for this partnership, and I learn from them every time we meet. And I'm always happy that they're here to speak to the committee about what they see in our data. So, welcome, Ray and Judith. I see Judith is going to sit in the front row. Well, it's especially exciting because this is our third year of longitudinal data, and that to us is a real line in the sand where we can really dig in. So, welcome.
Yeah, I want to thank you for this third year, because I hope I can communicate to you, but there's some really exciting data that are important, not only for this community, but more generally. And so I'm going to go through the early part of the task force survey pretty quickly, because you should, from the previous years, you will have had this information about what our objectives are, which we're looking at aggression, the levels and the types. We're looking for places of difficulty in the system, and we have victims, targets of aggression who give us this information. We're also looking to have a metric that we can use to determine whether whatever we do as a community has an effect on bullying and on various kinds of bullying. Knowing whether we have an effect means we can continue things that we're doing or change things that aren't really working. And we're measuring the effect of the Caring School Community Program that started back in 2010. So this is an additional exciting component that we happened to come in just at the right time when that was beginning. The survey is one that ensures the validity of responding. We do that in a number of different ways. We have a program that actually tests whether or not students are responding at a speed that indicates they're reading the questions. We also have a part of the inventory that has a reading test in it. It's not just a reading test, but because you have to answer particular items in a particular way, you can test whether someone is really playing your game and answering things in a reasonable fashion. We also have throughout the survey what we call a positive deceptivity scale. It's one that picks out individuals who are not really responding honestly. They're saying much better things than really most people would ever say about themselves. And we also have something that's an improbability scale, which means saying things that are totally improbable. And as you can see, we eliminate people, so 34 of the middle school, 29 of the high school students were eliminated for the reading program, and the positive deceptivity, 12 students were eliminated in the middle school and 16 in the high school. And then on the improbability, 8 and 10. Now, it turns out that students who do one oftentimes do others, so the elimination is not one for each one, but overall we eliminated this year 51 of the 753 middle school and 54 of the 703 high school students, which is approximately equal to what we've done in the previous years. And that, again, is important because it indicates that you're not knocking out people and getting effects because you're doing something differently for effects. So they're equivalent to 2011 and 2012. Again, for just going over very briefly the survey, it asks of all students 6 to 8 questions about different kinds of aggression. So physical aggression, non-physical aggression, relational aggression, and cyber aggression. And in the high school, also sexual harassment. Parallel questions are asked for people who are perpetrators and people who are targets of that perpetration. So these are just examples. Again, a physical aggression question is simply, I grabbed and held someone against their will. One of the things that's very important about this is we're asking about specific behaviors. We're not asking people to identify whether or not they're a bully or whether or not they're a target. We determine that by the algorithms that we apply to the data. We're simply asking them what happens. And you can see a parallel item, physical target. Someone has grabbed or held me against my will. And then non-physical aggressor. Here, you're not doing it to a person's body, but to the things they own. I've ruined or stole stuff from other students just to be mean. Relational is aggression within a relational context. So here I intentionally left someone out of an activity or conversation they really wanted to be part of. And then the last one is kind of relational aggression, except it's on the internet, so it becomes cyber aggression. And not surprisingly, there's a high correlation between those who are relational and those who are cyberly aggressive. We also have, in the program, we have a subroutine that identifies whether individuals are potential aggressors or are potential victims, and then they're asked specific questions. And so we get information about proactive and reactive aggression, about the aggressors. Proactive aggression is the kind of aggression that is instrumental. It's thought about before, it has a target, and it has an end. Reactive aggression is aggression that occurs in reaction to something that happens. It's aggression that oftentimes is angry or anxious or mood-driven kind of aggression. Social isolation speaks for itself. Emotional dysregulation means problems dealing with holding your temper, controlling your moods. So overall aggression. So we're going to go through first the middle school, and I'm going to try in the middle school to give you both an overview and then also to try and talk about how it is we assess what's going on as a function of the caring school community. So basically, you can see here that a physical aggression, we had a very significant effect, and indeed from 2011 to 2012 it was significant, and from 2012 to 2013. So we improved in both year comparisons. In the other three, we had improvements and there was significant improvement in the first year. It was maintained in the second year. It wasn't increased significantly. Now, I'm going to use the term significantly. What I mean by that is that's when the difference that occurs is very unlikely to have occurred simply by chance. So there are going to be differences here that look very big and real, but if they're not significant, we don't consider those to be real effects. For instance, the cyber. So the cyber was the same effect. So here are the levels of significance. You can see that these effects are very, very strong. Okay, there's 1 in 1,000 chances that they could have been by chance. Okay, now oops, I got to go back. So in previous years, what we have done is we have given data on the percent at least and almost daily. But going through that now with 3 years gets to be far too complex to process. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to give you graphs of what happened. Now this is a graph of almost daily. The almost daily focuses on these particular data. Those are only one of the kind of percentages that you're dealing with. We get far more stability if instead of using almost daily, we use the scale score. So here we're getting the scale score is the average on all of the items that are tested. Statistically, that has a much higher reliability and gives us a lot better stability. So here I'm just going to switch in. Those are now the data when you have the scale scores used. You can see how nice and straight and even they are. And the effects you can see very. So for instance, you have the non-physical. That's the biggest one. You can see we had an effect and then it leveled out. You can see here for the relational aggression, we had an effect and then it leveled out. Here's the physical, which kept on going, and then the cyber, which we had an effect and it leveled out. So you can see those are where the results are, the significant effects are coming. So conclusions from the overall effect is we have an overall decline. Psychological scales, which I'll be talking about later, are going to suggest that the change in middle school is due to a reduction in emotional dysregulation and reactive aggression. It's really not tied so much to the proactive aggression. And later on, we're going to see that the targets are tied to a reduction in isolation. You notice that still the biggest aggression is in the non-physical and the relational. So if you actually look at it, 61%, which is the average of these two, of the students are still experiencing at least some of it. And if you look at the frequency of experiencing it almost every day, 3.2%. But that's down from in 5% in 2012 and 6% in 2011. Where is the worst aggression is something that we've been tracking. So this is what we had in 2011, where it was a combination of the 8th grade boys, the 8th grade, and the 7th grade boys. In 2012, it really focused on the 7th grade boys. Those 7th grade boys then moved in 2013 to the 8th grade, and they are still the group that is really problematic. They have not experienced the caring school community. They were kind of ahead of the curve. Would have been lovely to have had them in the program. So now I'm going to try to give you a visual of how it is we're thinking about assessing the caring school community. So we have the grades, and the caring school community is a K through 4th program. We do the survey in 5th through 12th grade. So these are the individuals. Basically, as we move through the years and individuals move forward, they have different number of years that they will have experienced the caring school community. So as we move forward, more and more people are moved into the survey, and they have experienced different amounts of caring school community. So there are different effects that we look at as we move forward. We're right here now in 2013. One of the effects that we lose is what I would use is the 6th grade effect, and we did get the 6th grade effect last year. So we compared the 6th graders who had the caring school community to those who hadn't to see whether there's a real drop. This is called an age cohort design. This is a naturally occurring age cohort design. 7th grade effect is now we have a group in 2013 who've moved into the 7th grade, and we can compare them to the ones previously who have not had the caring school community. So that's one effect. There's a second effect, which is one that's done within years. So we have groups that have not had the caring school community compared to those that had, and it changes as we move through the year. Now, this is an effect that's very difficult to get because basically, as we're moving through middle school, we're moving into more bullying. So that to get the pattern where you actually get this kind of result, I never thought we'd manage to get that. That's when I was telling Debbie she made my year. When we've gotten some of those effects, I was kind of like jumping up and down. I only had Judy to celebrate with. We celebrated. Okay, so now we're going to do the physical abuse. So we're going to use the scale score, and here's the data. Now this looks very complicated. For this particular one, I'm going to broaden it, and I'm just going to go through what it is we're looking for so you can see the patterns, which are so important. So the first thing we're looking for is what I call the sixth grade effect. But to make things easier for you to process, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use circles to indicate the no caring school community, and I'm going to use pluses to indicate those particular classes in those ages that have had caring school community. And what you see already is that the no caring school community are higher in general on physical aggression. But that's not the key to the pattern. The first thing is we asked, did we get our sixth grade effect? Yes, we did. I showed you these data last year. The next was, well, we're going to get our seventh grade effect. Yes, we did, significantly. The next is considering them within. Now, in the comparisons, this is the only one in which the significance is between these two groups. So you got your caring school community. In all the others, we got the pattern. We just didn't quite make significance, and this one was very close. That's pretty amazing effects. So that's the findings for the physical. Now we go to non-physical aggression. Same thing is going to occur in each one. What I'm going to do is now I'm going to give you the no caring school community and the caring school community. In this one, we got our sixth grade effect, we got our seventh grade effect, and in every year, we got the caring school community to be better than the non-caring school communities.
So that data proves then that the caring community program is an effective program to reduce bullying.
I mean, it would have been effective if we got a sixth and seventh grade. This is like effective in spades.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it just,
no,
wow, that's really significant, right?
It's just amazing results. I was so happy about these. I took them to a conference just this last week to show them to a person who is probably the preeminent bullying person in the world, and she looked at it and went, wow.
That's great.
So
these all my happy slides.
These are happy slides. So we get, again, I don't want to, when we're going to relational, we're going to get the same results in relational. So here, you've got the sixth, you've got the seventh, and you've got, across the board, you've got the effects for relational. For cyber, we don't get everything, okay? But you got to remember that one of the problems, not a problem, one of the characteristics, I should say, of cyberbullying is that you'll notice that the fifth and the sixth graders have very little of it. So what happens is you have the order. You don't get the sixth grade effect. This is not significant, but there's hardly any cyberbullying to kind of get rid of in the fifth graders. You do get an overall effect in the seventh, so we don't get our seventh grade effect, we get an overall effect. This part is not due to the caring school community. This part is due to the caring school community. However, even in this one, we get significant differences here. We just miss it again with the sixth graders who were very low in the cyberbullying. And here we get two different significance. I was not very good in doing it. So you've got these are different from that, and these guys are different from that. So but it goes in the caring school community direction again. Now looking at targets. Now the data in targets are not going to be as clean. We're going to get in the targets a caring school community effect, but it's going to have some parts that don't work. And this is one of the examples of why the survey is so good, because it identifies for us a place that's a problem that we need to address. So, but first, I just want to compare the aggressors whom we've just looked at to the targets. And in general, you find aggressors reporting slightly less aggression then you do the targets. They're consistent across the 3 years. The explanation for this is you do have bullies who target lots more people. So that's very consistent with the literature that we found. The literature in the... So here in aggression, we had a physical effect. You see, the overall effects are going to be much less significant. This one was only 0.5. We have a non-physical, which is a very important one, but we don't have any improvement. We just have kind of maintenance of where we got in 2012. Relational, same effect. Cyber didn't quite reach significance. It was a tendency. If you look at the overall effects, you can see where the non-physical is the one we got the biggest effect, and you can see that's continually moving straight down. The slope is almost the same as it was the first time. The trajectory is all down except for this little blip up in relational aggression between 2012. None of these, of course, are significant in the right side. So the general overall trend, again, the relational targets, just as you have the relational bullies are saying they're doing the most bullying in non-physical and relational, the targets are saying, yeah, that's where they're doing it. That's right. And you see the very high level, 78% of individuals, which is actually a little bit up from the 75% in 2012. That's not a significant difference, are experiencing it all the time. We do get a little bit of a reduction to 6.4%, the average of these two here, which is down from 8% in 2012 and 9% in 2011. And that's the more consistent bullying of someone experiencing it almost every day, which is quite intense. The worst aggressors, again, in the 11th grade, in 2011, we had 7th grade boys and the 6th grade girls. In 2012, we got the 7th graders who were the targets, with the 6th grade being targets for the non-physical. When we moved into the current year, it was the 8th grade again. They were the aggressors, and they were aggressing against their classmates. So you find the boys and the girls being the highest subgroups of targets of aggression. Okay, now we're going to look at the physical aggression, and this gets to be a little bit more heavy lifting because it's not the simple pattern that we have. First, I'll try to make it a little bit easier by giving you the no caring school community and the yes caring school community. And as you see in general, you've got the ones who have gotten the caring school community are in general lower, but it's not complete. We didn't get a 6th grade effect. That was almost significant, but we didn't get it. We did get a 7th grade effect on the targets. And this is one of the things to watch through it. This 6th and 7th grade effect on the targets is going to be consistent and true. We've got the level effect in 2011, but you can see we didn't get the consistency in any of the other places in 2012 and 2013. Now, why is it that we're not getting it? Well, if you look at that little group there, that's the 5th graders. If you just drop them down, if they were lower, you would have a pure caring school community effect. So what's happening here is the 5th graders, who are the 4th graders coming into 5th grade, are being targeted physically a lot. Okay, they end up being, and we're going to see it's targeted more than just physically, it's targeted non-physically and relationally as well. So the 5th graders are one of the problems. You have a caring school community, but the 5th graders, remember the 5th grade aggressors are dropping lower, but the 5th graders are still being aggressed against. So they could be aggressed against by upperclassmen. You get, again, a similarly complex pattern when we go to the non-physical aggression. If we look at the overall pattern, indeed, there is some caring school community. Notice we do get the 6th grade effect. We do get the 7th grade effect. We have another interesting effect that comes up here. And this is an effect in, well, first of all, the Sue Abrams effect occurred. That was the one I reported last year, where she was working with the 8th graders and reduced non-physical aggression single-handedly. A nice effect. You're going to see that her 8th graders that she started working with then, when they go into the 9th grade in high school, the aggressors actually have reduced. We call that the Sue Abrams high school effect. This is an effect that's interesting. You're going to see it come up in a couple of places. So the sixth graders in 2013 are significantly higher than the sixth graders in 2012. So that they're kind of having more difficulty later on. So there's a sixth grade effect and a fifth grade effect. I'm going to show you data that suggests that this seems to be related to is isolation, social isolation. You notice that the effects overall don't end up being consistent within them, and that's partially because, again, you've got this really high fifth grade effect that's sitting in there. Okay, go to relational targets. Again, we know school and the school. We get the sixth grade effect. We get the seventh grade effect here. We have that sixth grade negative effect where the sixth graders in 2013 are higher than the sixth graders in 2012. We don't get the pattern within the years, and again, that's due partially to that fifth grade group that's high in the group as targets. And also the other problem here, which was true in the non-physical aggression, is that sixth grade problem. So those are the two problems that come up. In cyber, we do a lot better because the fifth graders aren't cyberly targeted when they come in. They're targeted in other ways. So there's the no caring school community. That's caring school community. So it looks more clean for the caring school community effect. You get your sixth grade effect. This just missed significance. So I put a question mark there, but it was consistent across it that we were getting those effects. We have this sixth grade problem that comes out. You don't, and you do have in both 2012 and in 2013, you get the caring school community effect, but you don't have the high fifth graders. So you can see when the fifth graders go down because they're not cyberly targeted, the caring school community comes out. But all of this is very important to show that there is an effect on targets. Just an effect on aggressors is not going to be good enough. You also want the targets to say that the aggression has gone down. Now processes, and again, this is emotional dysregulation, which is given to the aggressors. Here you can see the not caring school community versus the caring school community. We have this one kind of really strange effect, which is the seventh graders in 2011, for some reason, were very low in emotional dysregulation. But within this, you see you get the sixth grade effect, you get the seventh grade effect. And then you have this significant effect, which is the seventh graders who were very low in 2012 become the highest people in 2011 become highest people in 2012. You do have the caring school community effect in 2012. This pattern is very much like the pattern you saw for the aggressors. In fact, if you just move that one out of it, you've got a pure caring school community effect. So emotional dysregulation is one of the things that's correlated with the improvement in the aggressors for the reduction in their aggression. We find the same kind of improvement paralleling using reactive aggression. This is the aggression which has anger and is highly correlated with the emotional dysregulation. So we have, we don't get a sixth grade effect, but we get an overall significance over the 3 years. We do get our seventh grade effect for reactive aggression. We get the Sue Abrams effect in the eighth graders, which we presented last year, and we get the caring school community effect within the 2012. So again, this is a pattern that is consistent with the effectiveness of the caring school community. Proactive aggression, we don't get the effect. We get this really weird, the seventh grade group had some very strange things. So they were high in proactive aggression, which is interesting because they were low in emotional dysregulation. That kind of fits. The proactive aggression is the instrumental kind of aggression. We didn't get either the sixth or the seventh grade effect. We got significant differences that went in, and not quite here against the caring school community because the sixth graders were off here. This is the caring school community effect, and this is the caring school community. But we didn't get our sixth and seventh grade effects. So I would argue this is really not co-varying with the caring school community. Now the last one is a very, very interesting one. This is the isolation effect for the targets. So here's the not get the caring school community and the getting of the caring school community. And what you see in this one is we get the 6th grade effect, we get the 7th grade effect. We also get the effect that was a problem, the 6th grade negative effect. The 6th graders in 2012 are better than the 6th graders in 2013. So there's a problem there with it. And we have that really strange 7th grade effect. I don't know how to explain that, but we do get an effect in 2012, but it is not the caring school community effect, and it's the same one you get in the targets, and the reason is because that 5th grade group is up there. Perfectly matches with what's going on in the targets. So that what the caring school community is doing for the targets is it's reducing social isolation, making them part of the community, and providing protective factors for them. It's dynamite. You know, really, we got to get the 5th graders down in that. So overall, aggressors, significant decline in 4 aggressive types. Non-physical and relational aggression remain the highest aggressors. Most problematic with the 8th grade boys in 2013. The pattern, especially the 6th, the 7th grade findings, and in some, the patterns that have to do with the within-year comparisons support a caring school community. For targets, an overall decline, mostly from 2011 to 12, but maintenance to 2013 overall. The 8th grade boys join the 8th grade girls in being the most targeted. They also are the ones that have the highest aggressors in them. The level of physical, non-physical, and relational aggression in the 5th graders indicates there's a problem there, something that we have to target, something that we're going to do something about. Other target improvements in the non-physical, relational, and cyber targets all support that the caring school community is working for targets as well as for aggressors. The consistency of the data and the fact that you get these underlying processes changing in parallel is really very impressive. So the explanations, we have the reactive aggression, the emotional, and the social isolation. That maps onto the results, and it suggests that these explanations, the reactive aggression, the emotional dysregulation, are accounting for the caring school community, for the aggressors and the isolation for the targets. It points, though, for the aggressors, it points to an individualized effect and not a community suppression of aggression. We're going to show you some data in a couple of minutes about bystander effects. There are no changes in bystander effects. So this is something that goes on. The high school, I'm going to try to go through very quickly. We didn't have any differences between grades in 2011 to 12. There were some changes in relational and cyber aggression among aggressors, and there were some changes in target reports of decreases in cyber aggression in 2011 to 12. There were differences between grades that were reported in 2013. So we're going to give you just a very quick overview of those changes. There are a couple of different patterns. One is you get changes in the 9th graders. These were the 9th graders that Sue Abrams started working with, and you find they have a reduction in the frequency of all kinds of aggression as aggressors, and you have changes in relational aggression in 3 years. No effects at all of changes in sexual harassment across the 3 years in the high school. That seems to have stayed pretty much consistent. And this is just to give you what the effects are like. So here's the 9th grade physical aggression. You see in parallel, males and females both dropped from 12 to 13. Females dropped more in non-physical aggression. They're the blue. Both dropped in relational. The females dropped a little bit more than the males. And the same pattern occurred in the cyber aggression, where the females dropped a little bit more than the males. When we come to targets, the drop in aggressors was not experienced as much by the targets. So you get only 2 effects, the 9th grade physical in the targets and the 11th grade relational in the targets. And here are those results. So you see in parallel, but mostly the females are dropping in physical targeted aggression in the 9th grade. So they're experiencing some positive effects from those 9th grade drops in aggression. And we've got the 11th grade relational. It's mostly the females. The males don't really change that much. It's really a female effect. Now the characteristics of the bullying incidents. And there were a number of different questions that last year we had that we changed the bully survey so we could address these, and we wanted to look at the consistency of the loci of targeting of behavior. So now what you have to remember is the computer picks out individuals who have been targeted by reporting more than one experience in non-physical, relational, or physical. Then the data that I'm going to be showing you is actually not only that they've been targeted, but then they answer questions as if they are acknowledging they were a victim. Overall, 42% of the middle school students identified or were selected for targets, and 37% of the high school. This is pretty much equivalent to what we've had in the past years, not different. What you see in the aggressor type, so this is now, who are the aggressors? Are they boys, girls, groups of boys? You get virtually no effects between 2012 and 2013. They're pretty much the same. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight for you changes that were 10% or greater, so you can look at what those effects are. In high school, we have a reduction, and it's interesting because it turns out it is the girls. Now you notice in the 9th grade when you looked at it, it was the relational aggression. The girls were the ones who were going down more than the males. So these data by the targets are consistent with the targets report that there indeed is less perceived aggression in the females. Location of the aggression. So here we're looking at the middle schoolers, and there were some changes. Most of them were quite consistent, but recess for the 5th and 6th graders has gone up some 11%. So recess has become a more problematic area. For the middle schoolers, outside is not as big a problem. For the 7th and 8th graders, it is a problem, but it decreased. So it got, and I make green better. I'm a green person, so green is better and red is bad.
Danger.
My bias. You notice also that we introduced the band room and the library, and these were not serious areas. We did it for both groups because we wanted to see the relation between that and the high schoolers. For the high schoolers, the data are pretty much the same. We get one reduction in the cafeteria. That's the only one that was 10%, and it just kind of made that. You notice that we do have the band room, and that's at 9.5%. This is incidence, so now we're talking about targets telling you where it is that the greatest number of incidences are that actually happen to them. Library is a pretty safe place. That's where I would go in the school.
Could I ask a question before we go? And I'm sorry because now you've gone a couple slides back, but when you did the slide that said where middle school incidents take place, the classroom seemed to jump up from 39.4% to 47.4%. Now the classroom is a structured, supervised area, so was there anything that you felt was significant about that, John?
So let me just say, this was middle school.
We're middle school, you had it, that slide right there.
Okay. So
The classroom from 2012 to 2013.
I don't know that if it's not greater than 10%, you've got some random variation. You really can't tell whether it's significant or not. So I was just picking out the bigger ones.
Sure, I understand, but that seems like a pretty high percentage.
It's pretty high. Even the 39% is high for the classroom. So it's a concern about that. That's something that, again, if the committee wanted, you could ask additional questions. Maybe not this year, but we could do it next year. That you could ask follow-up questions. I'm going to give you some follow-up questions that you requested last year about the band room and where the band room affects. So you can. The nice thing about this inventory is you can tweak it to ask subsequent individual questions that would deal with that. So you could, if you had questions that we want to think about, we should talk about that, and you should give those to us. And what's going on in the classroom. Now there's some very interesting data on bullying that have just come out. There's some meta-analyses in 2011 and 2012 that talk about what are the kinds of effective things for reducing bullying. And in European schools, but not in America, they find effects of increased discipline and more consistent kind of discipline and greater supervision, especially in research, as really reducing, those kind of things really reducing the amount of bullying. The unfortunate thing about those is that they're very difficult to implement in our society. They're much easier in Finland and Norway and England than they are in the United States, because they take a whole different kind of view and also a different structuring of how it is we have those things. But that's something we should be thinking about, discussing what it is we want to do. And we've gotten much better at knowing all that literature now, because we're...
It also doesn't tell us, like, when we meet and we talk in a small group, it just begs more questions. So if you see classroom or you see band, is it during the transitions? Is it when there's teachers in the class? Is it when the teacher isn't in the class? Because some teachers are in the hallways, which is a big area, unsupervised. So kids could answer, yes, it's in the classroom, but it could happen during the transition time. So sometimes, you can only ask so many questions.
Right.
I don't think that necessarily means that it's happening during structured classroom time.
Yeah,
It may
I
be
agree.
during
Transitions.
types.
Well, when the
What-
teacher leaves the class
I
for
would-
some time before.
I'd be curious to know what grades, because I noticed on the other slide you had 7th and 8th grade in some of those areas, but what classrooms? Are they 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th? Could we zero in on that?
We could zero
Because I
in
think
on
that, I mean, if you saw a higher percentage of one of those grades, you could maybe focus their attention on that.
We could reanalyze the data for that.
I think that would be kind of significant, because I agree with Tina. That jumped out at me, too.
Yeah.
I mean, that was higher than the bathrooms, where there's no supervision in the bathroom, when, kids are just maybe going in there.
Actually didn't, I don't know, Sue's here and so is Diana. It didn't surprise me because they spend the majority of the time in classrooms every day. So the likelihood that something's going to happen in a classroom, that's where 95% of their day is. So that actually didn't surprise me. I just don't know what is going on during all of those moments, and it could be 99 different things.
I was thinking
So,
thinking of adult supervision, and I was thinking you have adult supervision in a classroom versus a bathroom.
But there are a lot of times when you don't have supervision. in the
You
class.
don't necessarily, when they're changing classes, your post is in the hallway where it's more, it's where they're supposed to be, and kids are transitioning in and out, getting stuff.
Yeah.
So Sue and Diana.
I guess my question is, the data is not the total group of students, it's those that have identified themselves as targets.
Yes.
So that's a percentage of the total, and of the percentage who identified the targets, this is where they're saying they are being targeted.
Right.
The kids who.
We have other questions of where you're most scared. So here's the middle school where you're most scared in general. This was asked of everyone. And here we have no teacher, are you most scared? And you see it's very low. So the targets are targeted there, but most people feel pretty safe in the classrooms. You're talking about 97% saying they're really,
Yeah, that's good.
in 2012 and in 2013, 98% of them are saying, I'm safe in the classroom, even with no teacher.
Well, and the bus was a much lower percentage of identified incidents,
Yes.
but yet that's where
I know.
a lot of the students feel most scared. So it's interesting.
Yeah,
data. It is interesting.
Well, there are differences. I mean, we're going to see that the incidents of the band room are not radically high, but when we go to where people are scared in the high school, that's coming up next. So we broke down, this is the 5th and 6th and the 7th and 8th, and you see that the bus is lower in the 7th and 8th than it is in the 5th and the 6th, and pretty much the same here. That's at least, that's not a significant difference there, but at least it's going in the right direction. So where they're most scared. So here, this is where the high school students are most scared. And here was the area that this 8% came up, which is the highest place overall that people were scared. And so we wanted to see, is that consistent? And not only is it consistent, but it did blip up a little bit. So the question then, if people were, we went to the targets and we asked them about where it is, when it was that they experienced things in the band room. And remember, it's about 9.5% of high school. And this is a high school phenomenon, not a middle school phenomenon. And here's the graph of where they are. It's pretty much equal across the board. The most is during the day, right during school, and after school. But you do have some that occur on the weekends and before school. So it kind of breaks up. It's like it's not giving us, oh, let's just target that one place.
That's interesting. Because
that's
the reason we added this in is because the first 2 years the first year I think kids wrote in band. We had some write-ins or something that cued us in to adding. That's why we decided to add band and library, just to probe a little bit. But I think my supposition was there's a lot of kids in the high school after hours, and there's less supervision, let's face it, in the whole band wing. And so I guess I assumed that the majority would come back after school hours. So this is a little bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
expecting it to be when the band wing is in use with less supervision. So,
Social context is a really important thing. So this is the issue about that a lot of people have been focusing on, unfortunately not very successfully, which is the bystander kind of research that's going on. And what you see is that there's really been no changes in the numbers of witnesses. The no witnesses, one witness, the percentages are pretty much, but you also see that there are a lot of witnesses of the bullying that occurs. And in the high school, you also have a lot of witnesses and not much changes in the frequency from 2012 to 2013. So the bystander effect is not having much of an effect. Bystander response. So here's, what do the bystanders do? Basically nothing, and they're doing a little bit more of nothing. They really, some of them do try to stop others, but it's about a third. But the most frequent effect is that they really don't do anything. In the high school, we did get two changes, and they were kind of interesting. It just seemed as if they changed the definition of things. So what you get is you've got watched and laughed. It went from 28% down to 11, but then they took that improvement and they threw it right into egged others on. So you're getting the same effect. You either egg them on or you laughed. And, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Yes?
Madam Chair.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so my question is, where's empathy coming in? Do we know? Because the caring school environment is clearly working.
Right.
Right? But they're still riding the bus home and letting a lot of stuff, at least as reported and documented, a lot of stuff go on in our fair town. It could vary by demographic, of course.
But to get the bystanders in the middle school, that's a tough thing to do because you're coming into a time when young adolescents have a reference group that is very important, and they're not going to, it's very, very difficult to overcome that and stand up for something. You'd have to really start to train that in. And then in the programs that they're trying to do that, they try to do specific kind of training, not simply, telling people that they should stand up for things. That doesn't work at all. But even there, they're not having very great effects. The kind of things that seem to have the effects are the stuff that's very effective in Europe, which is more the control things and bringing in parents and training teachers and very intensive kinds of programs. Those things seem to be. In the United States, there's some promise. I was just telling Deborah that the Dorothy Espelage has been looking at social emotional training of individuals, and that's having a big effect. She has a randomized study of 30 schools, and she's getting a 40% drop when she's doing that kind of training. So that might be a better way to go to get the empathy, to get the problem solving, to get the conflict resolution. But bucking that kind of system in the middle school is a very tough thing to do, and even in high school. So
We don't get it in adults either.
Yeah.
Adults don't help others in trouble when there are other people around. Adults tend to help when they're the only one, and the person's going to die or whatever's going to happen if they don't do anything. That's when adults help. So personally, I don't think that this is the right measure to measure improvement in bullying in the school. This is really pie in the sky, in my personal opinion.
yeah, we're kind of on the same page on that.
Thank you. I didn't mean to just take you off track.
No, that's not off track. I think
we've talked every year about this because we've seen encouraging data, but that idea of how do you empower the bystanders to make a difference is really the most challenging piece of all of this area of social emotional.
Yeah, it's really hard. And when you do get some effects, you look, and this is not in the bullying data, but in sexual aggression literature in college. When you get some minor effects, you move out then just a couple of months later, and it dissipates. So it's like this effervescent thing that you get a couple of people to do because they've just been trained in it, and then you go looking at it, a number, and it drops off.
So I have to say, it sounds discouraging from what you're saying. So Are we
No.
gonna, no, I mean the piece about the bystanders.
Oh, yeah, by that, yes.
Not your present, I'm
No, I
talking
understand.
specifically about the bystander. So what kind of best practices can we think about as a district to, given what you're just saying, to try to make, more positive movement in terms of the bystander response? Is it related, like you said, more to the emotional issues, or is it also related to the fear that some of these individuals have that then they will then be targeted? And could we try to attack this kind of around, like through that, in terms of how are we responding to when, as a district, as a school, to bullying? Could that help maybe raise that number in a more positive direction in terms of the bystanders and how they're...
I think that's too far away from what they're experiencing in their
It is.
present life, that you,
Yeah.
you as a community are pretty far away from a kid looking at someone getting hit in the hallway. It really needs to be something that's built in. I would hope that maybe improving the whole environment. What happens with the Swedish data is that they have very, very strong consequences, and they have very kind of consistent rules and very consistent expectations, and everyone has those and implements them, and then it becomes, I think, more rote for people to say, here is what it is that everyone is doing, here it is what we're supposed to do, and then all of a sudden that rule-oriented starts to be implemented. But I don't think you get it from community saying, oh, I think it's a good thing. I think that's something you have to really integrate into the school. And again, we could talk about that. We're going to be...
Because we're trying to figure, obviously what we're doing is having great effects. So we're investing in programs that help kids regulate their emotions and their feelings. We're helping kids, when something happens to them, not to be reactive aggressively, to be able to deal with that in a way where they don't have reactive aggression. I think that the next question would be, where do we continue to invest our time along with that? And is it worth the investment? Or is something like you just described in Sweden a suppression? And does that really change them as people? I don't know. There's lots of...
Yeah.
It could be just a suppression factor while they're in that school environment. So we look forward to learning more from them.
About that, yeah.
We have a few things we want to look at and see if we can create some more opportunities for impacting the specific areas that, keep tackling some pieces of this.
Yeah, and there's money out there for bullying, so that's something that we really need to...
And I don't mean to be, negative about it, because I think this is just one
It's
piece.
really a positive.
But it's very positive, obviously, what you're saying, that the programming from, is definitely having a positive impact on the information that you've presented up to this point. It's just that this is really startling in a sense when you look at this. But
There's an indirect effect that you can affect the bystander response. The less approval kids get for bullying, the more likely other kids are going to be teasing them for bullying, rather than expecting them to actually help in a situation where there's lots of other kids who could help and where they might have fears surrounding it. The more the school system, the school system's trying to do, is to change the social context so that the bullying is thought of as an inappropriate behavior. So some of this data shows that bullies are popular, so that they become less popular because nobody approves it, not the teachers, not the other kids. Then I think the whole level will go by and this won't be so horrible.
Last year we saw those wonderful public service announcements that the kids made. Are we going to have a competition like that again? Because that was so empowering.
Well, we had some students that just won poster and poetry contest at MARC, the Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center.
We had a video entry, but we didn't win first prize.
But this was at the grade level ones, the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. We had all of them come and they presented theirs. It was an inter-district one. Intra-district.
A student group, but as I look at what they're talking about from the next steps, it's a larger, the Cary School community has the effect on the individual person per se, but now it's the steps to take towards building the community and looking at the 5th graders and the 8th graders which the caring school community has the cross-age buddies, you know, doing that. And then when you build a community, then you have that connection, just like the high schoolers made the cards for the elementary school. And I'm thinking that those first and second graders are saying, wow, they did this for me. These high school kids, they care about me. And that's as much an important effect in community building as the actual cards for the students. So that's where I look at the piece of getting that structure woven in to have that ideal realized about it's not okay to do that, you know, on a very more consistent basis as opposed to a one-time. One-times can be boosters.
And I don't think this results, but what do bystanders do? I don't think it's any different from you find in probably any community. I think it's just illustrative of it's a really tough problem.
It's a tough, it's a tough nut.
It's a tough thing to have an
I mean,
effect.
people have been trying, you know, all sorts of big studies and everything else, and it's just a really tough one to get to work. It seems like it should be a good thing to do, and it seems like it should work, but then when it actually gets the nitty-gritty, that's why you have the data that tell you what it is that does and doesn't work and how it moves you. So this is the aftermath of the incidents, which is what the student who is targeted does. So in middle school, it's pretty consistent. They're telling parents and friends, and as last year, they're not really still telling the teacher, the guidance counselor, or the principal. That's again something that is a potentially very helpful thing, and I'll show you the data on that. In the high school, they tell the parents less. Mostly it's telling friends, but again, they don't tell the guidance counselor, the teacher, or the principal. What do parents do? Parents mostly give advice. It's pretty consistent. They haven't changed that much. They listen sympathetically. One of the things that did change in the high school is that there was a change, a drop of 10% in told to be strong, and there was, I think that was the only one that dropped. So there was a slight drop in what the parents were doing for the high school students. These are the data in 2012 that were very promising, in that the students were saying what percent felt that they got better versus which ones felt that they got worse. And the got worse has dropped a little bit in high school, so that's encouraging. Pretty much the same, but that's the message.
If they told their parents,
that's right,
things got better.
They tell the parents things got better, and we got exactly the same effect. Look at the high school though. We got a little bit of a nice blip in the high school.
Nice.
Still the same, got worse, but that was blip. But still, the message is, which is an important one, if you tell your parents, positive things will happen. And the students don't hear that because, well, they tell the parents, but the students don't hear that about the teachers. So here's the teacher, and in the middle school, pretty much the same things happen. A little bit of the told to be strong increased a bit, and there was a listen empathetically. This is again for the middle school. So there were some increases in their responsivity, and I think in positive ways, for the middle school teachers, for the middle school students. In the high school, however, we got some drops. So the give advice, there was a drop of 13%. Told to be strong, there was a drop of almost 20%. Give a pep talk, there was a drop of 17%. So I don't know what's going on there, but that something in the high school, the students felt that somehow they weren't being encouraged and listened to. Still, sympathetic is up, it only dropped like 7%. The consequences, if you tell the teacher, for the middle school in 2012 were positive, but not as positive as telling the parents. For the high schoolers, it was as positive as telling the parents. That's increased. I like this number. That was an increase to 72.5% of the middle schoolers. And the middle schoolers were also perceiving they were listened to more sympathetically and so forth. That was really good. The high schoolers kept that positive. 70% of them thought if they told the teachers or the counselor that things got better. There's still that got worse, 7.5%. But again, the overall message is, if you tell your parents, it's going to get better. If you tell the teachers, it's going to get better, and students should do that. So the overall summary, as the most frequent locus is in the school, except of course for the middle school 5th and 6th graders.
Outside the school.
The recess and hall for the high schools. The hall is also very high for the middle school, are the real places that are hot spots for real problems. Aggressive acts continue to be have a substantial number of witnesses, and the witnesses pretty much don't do anything. And middle school targets continue to be most likely to tell their parents and a friend. The high school are going to tell their friend. Both middle school and high school are less likely to tell the school officials, and telling both parents and the school officials have a positive effect. That's a message I think maybe people who are doing posters want to take this. Hey kids, you've been telling us, telling a teacher does it good. Yes, question?
Yeah, sure.
I thought the the bystander numbers were excellent right away for them to get out to the community as a speedometer, like, whoa, I didn't know I was going 80 miles an hour here. I mean, these are pretty loud numbers, right?
They're consistent with other people. We're not louder than anybody else.
Right, but I mean, it's like, wow, we didn't realize this was going, we didn't realize these numbers were this high.
Yeah.
Right? So, and most of this stuff happens outside of school.
Mm-hmm.
So, in an age where, it's okay for The Rock to intervene when the scrawny guy's getting picked on in a movie, we have to make sure that our students are also emulating good behavior outside for intervening when other people are getting pushed around, literally or figuratively. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot to expect of, especially middle school students and high schools. It's a lot to expect if they're outside school and they see something. Most likely it's outside school. Most likely it's because their most, as you said, their most important affiliations are with their peers.
Right.
So they don't necessarily developmentally have the courage to say something, do something, or intervene, and you can see why. So I think that's the challenge. What their peers think of them means the most to them, not whether the adults would approve of what they do or whether it's their parents or teachers. If they find out later, they intervene. The adult approval means a lot less than peer approval. So I think that's what freezes them sometimes.
Yeah, and I think, as Judy has said, I think the building up of the issues of learning how to deal with conflicts, of learning how to control your emotions, that eventually will have an effect of making things better and better. You kind of gradually chip away at it, and then the issue of the bystander, it'll become more the norm to do good things as opposed to not step in. But I think you have to do it from the bottom up. It's really hard to just tell people you should do this.
Right.
So anyway, so some of our conclusions is the survey's still working. We're getting terrific data. It appears to be providing a sensitive metric that allows us to identify problems. The effect of the caring school community is really working, and it couldn't have asked for better data. In fact, it looks like I biased the data. But I would never do that. It is, and it's important to think of in which ways the gains from the caring school community can be supported and extended to the middle school. That's another kind of thing. What are the kinds of ways that we can take the middle school? So expanding the caring school into the bystander interventions are there, but again, it's really hard to pick a program that's going to make that. And if you're going to invest a lot of time and money, I think you have to pick the best program that for Foxborough is going to have the best effect on where our targeted problems are, and address that in the best way we can given the empirical literature. And that's something we have to talk about and think about and try to implement in ways that are going to be effective. Providing an environment in which kids feel comfortable going to school officials. Again, that's the whole issue. If you go to the authorities, it's positive, it's not negative. That's an important thing. And making scary less scary places. So we have some targeted places that we might not do a complete kind of control thing the way they do in Europe, but maybe some targeted things might have an effect. So thank you to listening, and I went on for a long time. But
Thank you for your work.
This is really amazing. I just have a couple thoughts. I think that, the data that you're presenting here is showing that the program, our Caring Community program, is yielding positive results. That's number one.
Yeah.
Quite, as you said, it's quite significant. So I think that's important for people at home to understand, for the community to understand that we are taking these programs and they're making a difference.
Yeah.
That's not to say that there's always going to be areas that we need to improve upon, like you've identified. And I think, again, you're also using this data to figure out what additional best practices can be employed to make further improvements in stopping bullying. And so I think that this conversation, I'm sure you're going to have with Debbie and the rest of the administrators about maybe what other programming that we might want to use, or what the decisions are after there's more analysis of this data. I would love to hear back, for you to come back to the committee and tell us, because we've established that the Caring Community is effective. So who's to say that we can't bring another program in and it can be just as effective, or target certain specific areas like you're using the data to really zero in on.
To people with a lot of information, so
Right.
we're hoping to, we've threw out a couple of ideas when we met, and they're all exciting to pursue, so we're gonna see where we go from here, but.
Yeah, we might
the
be
last
able-
thing
we
I
might
just
be able
want-
to rope Dorothy Espelage into collaborating with
Yeah,
us.
that'd
Maybe
be
that would be
great.
nice.
The last thing I just want to say is that professionally, I work in psychiatric mental health field, and I see the impact of bullying on adults. And whatever, I feel very passionate about it. Whatever we can do to prevent that from happening to individuals is our responsibility, because it has lifelong impacts, and as you know, and it affects every area of their life, from their work to their relationships, and so I'm really excited about all of
Yeah.
this. I think this
I'm
is-
just excited, when you invest a lot of time, and I know Pete's here representing our elementary principal team, but when our elementary teachers and principals and then our secondary administrators invest so much time in programs to address this area and to improve it, that's why we like data, because if they had come back here 3 years later saying, there's really doesn't appear to be any effect at all, then we need to take a different road or make a different decision or research another program. So what I'm thrilled about is, yes, we have areas to work on that it's not having an effect on, but if in general we're seeing such really dramatic results of the impact of the program, then we know we're on the right track, and I think it'll give people impetus to continue to work hard on that. And now it's sort of part of just regularly what we do. Pete, wouldn't you say that, the Caring School Communities program? It's just, it's how we are in terms of how the problems are addressed and how communities come together. Some of the things don't surprise me, like when the 5th grade is reporting more than you might expect, but if you think about it, they're escorted from place to place in 4th grade, no matter what school they're in. When they get into 5th grade, they, for the first time, experience hallways, lockers, larger groups of kids without an escort, without the ducks proceeding, down the hall all the time. So that, if you think about it, that doesn't surprise me. It doesn't mean we can't do anything about it. It means that we just have to be aware of what's the change that maybe having kids report that. What does that mean? What are the underlying causes? And so we just start asking questions, and we're going to talk together about where we can go from here, maybe pursue some opportunities that, through the doctor's night that we wouldn't have access to otherwise. But I just appreciate the data, because I want to know if something's working, and I'm thrilled because I personally love that program. So I think it's really nice to see that it's having a lasting effect as the kids move on.
Absolutely, and it's important for the people who are involved in it, because there's a lot of work to get the Caring School Community going, and for people to know that this is really having an effect, a significant effect, a profound effect, as you say, on people's lives, because bullying is something that is lifelong, and it is something that is devastating, and it is something that we have to stop.
Thank you so much for your time and your
It's a great
efforts, your contributions.
You made my year with
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Well, let's hope we can make another one.
Yes, I'd like to make
We'll keep you updated.
Keep going.
But I do, a lot of people don't know how this stuff happens, but this is not a survey that we do through our own mechanism. They have their own software. They have to work with our technology team. it's installed on the computers, and then the data is taken off the computers by hand, if you will. So they really do put a lot into this, and I just can't thank you both enough, really.
Thank you.
We would never have access to this information without them. Thank you very much. We'll see you
Wow.
shortly.
I make a motion that we accept this report.
Okay, now we're gonna move on to something that's, again, always very positive, acceptance of donations. Ms.
Yes,
Benelli.
this is the Whole Kids Foundation School Garden Grant has awarded the Taylor Elementary School $2,000 to establish a garden. Pete's still here, which is great. I don't know if you and Bill, who oversees the school nutrition program, wants to talk about this, but they're going to be, anyway. Do you want to talk about it? Because you're here the whole night. Please come up and talk about it. If you're going to be in the audience the whole night, you might as well talk about something wonderful that's happening. And it's clearly about a school garden.
Yes, we've been very excited this year. We've been able to try some new initiatives at our school through the work of Allison Johnson and Jane Rice and their leadership with our students. Our students have been exposed to different taste testings that we've been doing, whether it be trying different greens of vegetables, different reds and oranges. They've been graphing their information of what they like, and it's been in our newsletter from our school. It's really exploded that we're catching some interest from some areas, whether it be Whole Foods and some other organizations, that Allison Johnson has been a genius about applying for grants. And it just seems like we have more people that just want to support these great ideas that these individuals have. And it's for this summer to be doing a project around a garden that's really going to look at that piece of being for our school as well as the community. Whereas in the summer, any growing that we're going to be doing, obviously our children are not there in the school during that time. So using that food a little differently, possibly with our community garden. Which is not far away from the school, and then as the school year comes around, for using these foods during the school lunch. And this would be a part that our students would be involved in this process as well, of where it aligns properly with our classroom curriculum.
Yeah, and I know Allison's hope is that she'll be able to get this grant to work through all the school district itself, so all the way up to the high school level. So they've done a couple steps. The other thing that Allison did recently as part of this whole nutritional program was there was a large screen TV that was added to the cafeteria where they could actually do presentation stuff to the children during the lunch hours and other times. And again, that was all funded by a grant that she applied for and received. And if that works out as well, that would be continued into the other buildings as well through the grant process.
And that's where we're able to give more education to our students, where they have a better understanding about what their choices, what impact their choices have for their food choices through lunch. And again, both Allison and Jane Rice have really been champions of this, whether it be, starting originally with the salad bar and what that means, and that our students want to make healthy choices. And they're really impressing me by the selections that they're making as they go through the lunch line. We've had a few other communities visit us to just watch, and they're amazed that the children are choosing this. It's not that it's someone leaning over them saying, you're going to make a good choice here, right? Our children truly enjoy the food choices that they're getting, and now we're still working out some ideas of how to use the technology that we have available in the cafeteria now to just have better education for our students so they understand the impact of these choices.
How long has the salad bar been in your school? About?
That came in at the end of last year.
Yeah, it was beginning. Well, we used the Taylor actually as the first of the elementaries at the end of last year, but all of them rolled out at the beginning of this year. For the full program.
I just wanted to ask Bill, what does this bring the total of grants that Allison has gotten for our food services program during her tenure?
Last year, which was her first year, she was at about 28,000.
She came and did an overview last year, and it's just escaping. I know it's a
I think she's
amount.
well over another, this year alone, probably in that same close to 18,000 so far. And she continues, because not all these grants, most of these grants are not annual grants, they're just one time. You apply for it, you kind of push it along and keep moving. And as I said, a couple of the ones that she's doing this year, if they prove to work, become the benefit for next year, we'll get the additional grants that would push along as well, so.
It dovetails so nicely with our wellness program. It really does. So this is fantastic.
And to use that as the example, I mean, that was one of the things that we struggled with in the past is, you know, we had our wellness teachers being led by Betsy O'Coin and Greg McManus at the Taylor, of where they were really working on the program of getting our students to be active, getting them to choose greens, getting them to do this. But we didn't have that crossover as much as we'd like in the cafeteria. And now, because of these resources that Allison has found for us, we're seeing the impact with our children.
So when she gets it, it is across the elementary schools.
She's gotten it for usually a test school to prove it works, and then once we can prove it works, then these groups are willing to fund further.
So Pete's the lead penguin on the.
The lead penguin. There was one fun thing years ago that the science department here at the high school decided to grow, and there had been some tomato seeds that had flown in space. And I'm sorry I don't remember who the carrier was, which spaceship. But they grew so well, and there were so many that some of the teachers were able to take home a few of these plants and plant them in our own gardens. So we had tomatoes from seeds that had flown into space.
Well, I think a lot of what Allison's trying to do on the elementary level, you know, with the garden concept is to get the kids to understand, you know, what it is and how it's grown, and therefore, you know, why is it something that's good for you versus, you know, a lot of the children obviously will see a tomato in the grocery store, but they have no idea what it took to grow that. And I think that's what she's trying to promote is that, you know, if the kids get involved with growing some of these vegetables, they'll be willing to try some of these vegetables, and then, you know, hopefully, you know, have an interest in continuing to eat them. So, but you know, we've gone through. I think one of the things with the food service thing is it went through a rocky start last year with all the new regulations and requirements and the stuff. And I think really all of the managers, you know, underneath Allison have done a great job to morph it into something that the kids seem to now, you know, enjoy. You'll always have kids that aren't going to eat it no matter what, but we've, I think, seen a big turnaround as far as number of participants in the program and the different offerings. I mean, you know, even, I know Allison's even considering going down to a small version of the smoothies on the elementary level and stuff to give them tries at things that, you know, have worked.
We do have them.
Yeah.
It's just not as frequent as I think the students or as much as Jane Rice would like currently.
Steve?
I'm a very pro Brussels sprout person, but I wondered if any of this could be blended with those young men who have that 2-minute tips for the elementary. And, you know, your salad is ready, and you sort of watch your salad come from the earth and into a bowl eventually.
We shared some of the information of saying that this is where we're moving towards,
Yeah.
and they were excited by that. And now it's to the idea of saying as we get closer
Yeah,
to
they're
fruition,
clever
it's going to be
guys.
how we pull these ideas together,
Yeah.
as well as our other ideas. And it, you know, some of this matches up very well with our science curriculum and other pieces, so that way it's not just something in isolation.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Motion to accept the donation?
I'll second that.
Any further
With
discussion?
gratitude.
All those in favor? 5-0, thank you.
Thanks for always being willing to try the next new thing.
Thank you for staying to the bitter end.
And if you can get a garden to grow in that Taylor soil, I'll be impressed.
No kidding. I've planted stuff back there.
Oh, they're going to amend it a little?
Well, we're actually talking about the idea of having some type of elevated beds, so that way it's easier as we try to get community members over the summer, because our students will do a lot of work during the year. But rather than having people on their hands and knees out on the ground, do some elevated beds and some ideas that we're still talking about.
Oh, that's great.
That's exciting. The outdoor classroom.
Good night, Pete.
That would be
That's wonderful.
a good senior project and cross-generational.
There is an outdoor classroom at Taylor. That was another, actually, Troop 7
Right.
Eagle Scout project.
The path, I know.
Yes, and actually, that was Jane Rice's son who built the outdoor classroom. And it's my understanding that her other son, her younger son, who is an Eagle Scout candidate now himself, is going to be doing some other outdoor project at the Taylor. So,
Wonderful.
yeah, we'll just see what happens. All good stuff happening
It is.
around town.
It really is.
All right, other matters? Anybody have any other matters?
No, I just don't know if I put in your packet the students who won the music
Yes,
awards,
and many
but we
congratulations.
didn't know at the last meeting exactly, so I think I'll say it. That's my only other thing. at the annual Micah Concert Festival, held recently. 500 student musicians from the Foxborough Music Department had fantastic performances, including the Ahern 5th grade concert band, conducted by Mr. Murphy, received a bronze medal. Ahern 6th grade concert band, conducted by Ted Haggerty, received a silver medal. Ahern 7th and 8th grade combined honor band, conducted by Donnie Albro and Ted Haggerty, received a gold medal. Foxborough High School concert band, conducted by Mr. Massey and Mr. Murphy, gold medal. Ahern 7th and 8th grade string orchestra, conducted by Cami Tadoli, received a bronze. The Foxborough High School Symphony Orchestra, also conducted by Ms. Tadoli, received a gold medal. The following choral ensembles performed at the Norwood host site. That was at the previous, were at the Foxborough host site. Those who competed in Norwood. Foxborough High School Combined Choirs, conducted by Dave Piper, received a silver. Foxborough High School Chamber Singers, conducted by Mr. Piper, received a gold medal. So congratulations to all the student musicians and our wonderful music department. And reminder that the POPs, annual POPs concerts, are on Saturday and Sunday, May 3rd and 4th, this weekend. So I encourage everybody watching to buy your tickets to either the Saturday night or the Sunday afternoon. I will be going on Sunday afternoon myself, and I know many of the committee members are, and it's going to be wonderful as always, with a special portion. That's all I say. Go and see it for yourself.
I had one thing. Well, I have a couple things actually, but I wanted to, the last parent leaders meeting was the same day as our seniors visited the high school, and I wondered if you wanted to tell the committee about that.
Oh, I'm so happy you said that. Yes, we had our senior visiting day at the high school, and we had just a great tour. I call it the unconventional tour, because rather than visiting the regular, what they think of as a math class or in English, we went to the music wing and we saw all the music classes, and that was quite exciting to see students in the act of their learning, and the what goes into their academic instruction in performance and in music is really interesting. We saw them rehearsing the special piece that they're going to be playing at the Pops, so that was quite moving. And then we went to the library and talked about how the library is not your old public school library with all the book stacks. It's really a place for all kinds of information and other things that you would go there for. We saw and spoke to people in the VHS classroom, so what are kids doing through virtual high school, what kinds of classes are they taking, and that was totally new, obviously, what kids are taking.
Can you imagine some?
If I weren't in education, I'd be totally stunned. And I think, so it was wonderful to see them. We had a great group of people. And then we went down along, I call it the backside. So it was the computer design, it was the woodworking shop. Mr. Eugner joined us. I had to go to the parent leader meeting, so Bill took over the second half of the tour. And they went to the art classrooms, and just talking about the different spaces that are required for these different courses in the curriculum is quite interesting. And then our wonderful food staff served them breakfast. So we really had a great morning, and we're looking forward to our senior visiting day in June at the Ahern. And tomorrow I have coffee and conversation at the senior center tomorrow morning again, from 10 to 11. They ask great questions and have great things, so I thoroughly enjoyed myself.
The difference between school then and now, they must have felt like they were walking through a private school academy or something, with the scope and the depth level.
And just to see even the equipment, to see the kids in the computer design class, the graphic design, and what they do and how they do it and what they were working on is, I mean, it really isn't anything in my generation that anyone saw until they had a career.
Right.
I thought it was a great idea.
Tina, do you have something else?
I had one more thing. The Ahern Drama Club is competing in a drama competition this weekend, and I wanted to wish them good luck. And they are doing, the competition is in Dedham, I believe, and they are performing Darcy's Cinematic Life, and they're doing it at the Ahern to practice for their competition for the public on Friday at 6:30 in the evening. It's about a 40-minute dramatic show.
Do you know what the festival is?
I cannot remember the name of the festival.
I'm just
sorry,
curious.
but Ms. Hathaway and Mr. Gill are advising them as one of our extracurricular enrichment and challenge programs, and just wanted to wish them
Awesome.
good luck. And,
Oh, yes.
and if
I'm
anyone
sorry,
is
what time Friday night?
6:30. I saw a flyer at the Ahern earlier
you.
today. So 6:30 on Friday, if you want to go and provide them with an audience for their
Yes.
performance. So
Thank
that's all
you.
I have. Thank you.
Anyone else for other matters? Okay, seeing none, we were going to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiating strategies with non-union personnel, superintendent's contract. The committee will not return to open session, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? And then a roll call?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair says aye.
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 Okay, meeting adjourned.